right.
Well, Cease, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Arlena. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, I'm ridiculously excited. I know I say that I'm excited to talk to people a lot, but this time I was like really nervous. I was like, oh, Cease is like my
Oh,
hero. I heard your presentation on polarized parts.
mhm.
And I was like, so I've been sober for 30 years. And I was like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, this is the thing I think I've been seeking, which is, and I wrote about it in my book about recovery resistance. And then I heard your presentation and I was like, wow, this is about, these polarized parts
That's
are
right.
really representing how we resolve internal resistance. How I feel like there's this knowledge action gap. We all kind of know what to do, but we don't take action. And so this is kind of one of the things I wanted to explore with you today is, why
Mm.
isn't that why aren't we able to take action on the things that we say that we want to do and how to resolve it? So we'll do a little demo we'll use me as a guinea pig and we'll do a little demo on resolving some internal resistance.
Well, I love that. And I love your phrasing of the knowledge and the action gap and what is happening in between there, right? For
Yeah.
everyone, it's how do I keep a promise to myself? That I,
Yeah.
and so many parts of us know that something is the right thing to do, and then making it, as you say, putting it into action, taking that action step, or sustaining it, taking it more than once, uh,
Yeah. Consistent
is
action is
really,
problematic.
yeah, it's really problematic. So I love thinking about that with you.
Yeah, that'll be great. Maybe as a jumping off place, you can sort of tell us who you are and the work that you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been in the field of psychotherapy for a very long time, over 40 years, really. I started out actually as a family systems therapist, which is how Dick Schwartz, the originator of the IFS model, started out. I knew him back in the day. We
Isn't
were
that
both,
funny?
I know, we were both here in Chicago doing family therapy. And he was a family therapy teacher, trainer, professor, and I was a family therapist in the field. And it wasn't a really huge community. We all knew each other. So when he began this new idea of parts, I was there in the beginning and heard him talk about this. It was just kind of wild, very different from family therapy to talk about the inner world, but to also to your point about polarizations and our thinking about that today. Uh, in a system, we think of it, a system is anything where parts relate to one another in a pattern. That's a systems definition. He's training that. His PhD is in family systems. So he started listening to our inner worlds and hearing how it worked systemically. So lots of people divide the psyche into parts. Freud divided the psyche into three parts, right? This is not unusual. But to apply systems to it is to notice how the parts react to one another. And that when you change one part, it affects the rest of the system. So this is sort of fascinating. And it also talks about that inner power struggle between do it, don't do it, or you have to do it. I can't right now. As you say, knowing it and doing it are so much two different things. So in IFS, what we do is we get into the middle of it. So I realize I'm not telling you much about me. So that's how I got to know Dick was in family systems world. And when he first talked about the inner system, it was sort of like, oh, this is interesting, but I don't want to do it right now. I did a lot of work for many, many years with physical and sexual abuse cases with women and men who had survived a lot of childhood trauma. So that was my work. I loved it. And I was intrigued with what Dick was doing, but was not, I did not follow it at that point. But then again, he was just thinking about it. He didn't start writing, he didn't write his book for 15 more years almost.
Wow.
And so he really did a lot of thinking about it before he put it out there. And then I got involved later after he written his book and got involved in training. And then I have become a trainer with him. So I was just, I was a therapist for 20 years before I started doing IFS. I've been a therapist for 20 years since. I'm always working with some kinds of trauma recovery and always knowing that trauma recovery involves some kind of way to soothe. When we've
Mm.
had attachment wounds, when had losses, when we've lost people, we've been shamed. If we've been in a marginalized community, us or our families, we've been in pain without proper support. We're going to learn how to protect ourselves. if we don't have that proper protection on the outside. So
Mhm.
those are the kinds of families and individuals I've always worked with. People who have extreme need to protect themselves because they've had extreme loss and exploitation. So I love this idea about how the protectors are trying to help us get through, which they are.
Yeah.
And so that's been a sort of a common theme all the way through my work, before IFS and then during. And then when I got into IFS, my own family, my former husband, everyone I know of my family, all the firefighters, as we say in IFS, all the addictive processes, whether it's food, alcohol, gambling, there's suicide, sexually inappropriate behavior. You can find it everywhere, not all in my immediate family, but in my extended family and in the families I've known and loved, people I've known and loved. So, this idea of how to work with people who've hurt other people, who are hurting themselves, who are engaged in very high risk behavior with themselves, and that affects others in high risk and painful ways. This is always, I've been in the position of how do I work with this as a therapist, as a family member, as a partner. What do I do? How do we work with this in a way that works? There's a lot of all or nothing thinking out there in the addiction world. You use or you don't use. You eat these foods, you don't eat then. There's a lot of, and I understand that. I understand the slippery slope
Yeah.
of using and getting into behaviors. I appreciate that. And yet, as a therapist, I know people don't change overnight. So, how can
Right.
we therapists sit with people in the process, in the mess, and help them find their way out of the mess and do it at a pace that works for them? So that's what compels me.
Yeah, that's amazing. What have you seen? So you have 20 years pre, 20 years post. What has been the most surprising thing for you in the post 20 years since you just started practicing IFS?
I think, our field of psychotherapy and mental health has gotten better at helping people. And the idea of the clarity between trauma or just attachment. When sometimes people say trauma and it has to be a very specific thing of exploitation
Mhm.
or abuse in childhood. And I want to just say this isn't everyone's story, who has ever drank too much or ate too much or whatever. However, there is some kind of wounding that needs attention. So many
Yeah,
times it's about, maybe it's even about alienation, not fitting into the world the way we want to, or fitting into our family the way we want to. So, what I think has changed overall in my field is a lot of people learning better how to work with, name, and work with trauma, which is truly, in short, the ability to sit in compassion with our own story.
exactly. Yeah.
How can we help people do that? And I love IFS for that because I think it is both user friendly. Everybody gets, I have parts. I don't keep promises to myself. Who is that inside doing that? And
Yeah.
understanding that we have, even back in the 70s and 80s, we talked about an inner child. The
Right.
idea, my very, very early people that I worked with, survivors of family sexual abuse primarily, they all knew that they had little tiny children inside that needed help that had never been taken care of well. They knew that
Mhm.
intuitively, right?
Right.
So this, for us to be able to have real solid skills to teach therapists to work and to build on that intuition that our clients have and that we have, I think is really powerful. And I think we're better at it than we used to be.
Are you seeing people heal faster with this?
Boy, faster is a tricky word.
True. I guess that's subjective and there's a lot of variables to that.
But do I think it's more effective? I do, Arlena.
Okay.
I do. I mean, again, and I'm not saying I feel like I did very good work the first 20 years of my life as well.
Yeah.
But I think that having options, and there's lots of different therapies out there, um, but having options for helping people connect to themselves and having understand themselves better, I think is always going to move things along more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the part that I wanted the part, the what I want what I was really hoping to focus on today. So, I've been in recovery for a long time, and I have friends who are in recovery for a long time. And I have found that there is sort of you don't even have to be in long-term recovery. It's sort of like, you quit drinking. And I think people can recognize really early on that we start developing these negative patterns. And in my mind, I've always thought of it as sort of like your default mode network, your brain's operating system that kind of keeps you in this comfort zone. We don't get too high, we don't get too low. We kind of keep ourselves in
Mhm,
this certain
mhm,
place. And I'm one of those people
mhm.
who is always striving for embetterment. I'm always striving to have like this internal desire to sort of live my life's purpose or
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like try to reach my
intentional.
highest. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And but
Mhm.
I find myself repeating patterns and I'm like, and so I do this thing where I consume information. I joke around that I'm a self-help junkie. I actually started a second podcast called Self-Help Junkie because I'm always like seeking
Yeah,
the
that's great. I
answers.
love that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's very popular.
Yeah, yeah. And it comes from this desire. There's a part of me that wants to accept who I am, love and accept
Yeah,
myself exactly as I am. But there's a part of me that's always seeking to grow and evolve and change and
yeah.
create. And I think that's normal and natural. And it's not that I don't love myself as I am, but I do want to continue to grow and evolve. And where I get stuck is around money. And I
Yeah.
feel like people get stuck in one of three areas. It's like romance, finance, or fitness, or health, wealth, and love. One of those
Uh-huh.
three areas. I'm sure you've
Uh-huh.
seen that as well.
Sure, of course.
So I'm like, okay, last year I was like, this is the year I'm going to figure out what my deal is with money. And so I started joining all these, Under Earners Anonymous, and I don't have any debt, but my friend was like, you should try, Business Debtors Anonymous And so I started exploring some of these things. And what sort of came up for me was like, I have a part of me that is ambitious and wants to create a successful business. But then I have these other parts of me that are afraid, like are fearful of success for a variety. It's like fear of failure, fear of success. And so I find myself taking course after course about internet marketing or business marketing, things like that, or just trying all these different things. But I sort of find myself,
Mhm.
under earning and sort of in the same, like giving away my time for free all the time. And so
Right,
I was like, well, I wonder if it would be, and I see entrepreneurs do this a lot. A lot of sober people, high achievers are sort of entrepreneurs. And I feel
right.
like a lot of
Independent
us,
thinkers, yep.
yeah, I feel like
Uh-huh.
a lot of us, I feel
Yeah,
like I'm one of many
yeah.
who really wrestle with this. And I thought maybe it would be interesting to sort of dive in and see if we can unravel some of these competing parts, like this need to be safe, like I don't actually know what it is, but I do recognize that there's a part of me that wants to be financially abundant, and there's a part of me that is continuing to sabotage that progress.
Right. That makes so much sense. And I love to do that little piece of work with you. I don't want to say it little, but you know what I'm saying. This
Yeah,
concentrate. I love your clarity about what's going on with you. But can I just say a little bit about how what exactly what you're saying fits in with the IFS model?
yeah.
So I'll tell you how this is my translation parts.
Okay, okay.
So you're telling me that this is what you're navigating. And so in IFS, we say there's manager parts, there's firefighter parts, there's exile parts. Manager parts have two real roles. They have a real functional role, real task-oriented role, getting everything done with relationships and work. But
Mhm.
the second aspect of them is I call it sort of attitudinal. It's the parts that are help us improve and grow. It encourages improvement and growth. That's all great, except that when that gets extreme, it becomes sort of self-critical, self-judgmental,
Yeah.
perfectionistic, and which is not, in my opinion, perfectionism is not doing things perfectly. It's no matter what I do, I could have done it better.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah, you just do a big piece of work and you think, wow, it
Yeah,
went great. And you go, why didn't I do it earlier? Why didn't I figure this out last year?
yeah.
Why didn't I start this year before? That's perfectionism. And those three parts to me, they
Interesting.
really are powerful generators in the system when they get going and they
Yeah.
can get extreme. The other side, firefighters being our parts that without, when they're not in any extreme form, they help us shift gears from manager energy. If manager is to do, we have that universal work-life balance between being, what does whatever that means to us, doing something different. How do we know when our workday is over? Especially people who work at home. How do we mark that? How do we do that differently? What do we do to soothe ourselves, to resource ourselves? What do we think is fun or carefree? So I think at their best, our firefighters encourage us to rest, relax, have sweetness, pleasure, novelty, mix it up a little bit, add a little
Yeah.
adventure.
Hmm.
But they can get extreme, of course, and take us out. And then we're not just relaxing, we're escaping, permanently and in an intense way. And we have to
Yeah.
escape more and more intensely with drugs, alcohol, sex practices, whatever.
I fall into the workaholism category.
Yeah, right, sure. And
Yeah.
then our little exiles are the ones that are our shared humanity. We all feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
We all have vulnerability in us. We have different reasons why that vulnerability gets burdened,
Uh-huh.
but we all share feeling sensitive, loving, sensitivity, innocence. And also, though, in that sensitivity, we have those parts that are able to be hurt, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes you can't hurt a critic, it's tough as nails, right?
Hmm.
Workaholic, who cares? You can't stop me, right? But our exiles are the parts of us that can't, that carry our most tender feelings.
Yeah.
And if they've been hurt and not taken care of, they need a lot of extra protection. And if there's no one on the outside helping us, we're going to help ourselves with our own protectors, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. A year ago, a little over a year ago, I did some trauma therapy. And what was interesting, what was revealed to myself was this belief that I'm not doing it right. And
Right.
when you were talking about the perfectionism, I didn't see that as perfectionism so much as like I'm just fundamentally flawed and I'm never doing it right. And so it kind of
Right.
keeps me in this striving mode. So that sounds like it's in the manager category.
Well, the desire, I would say we think of these things sometimes as two-part processes. So me, any of us might have a perfectionist part that says, you could have done that earlier. You could have done that better. You could have, improved that. But then we have that thought. If there's, in IFS, we say there's self. If we say, yeah, but you know what, I did do well, we talk back to ourselves in that kind way, the perfectionist says, oh, okay. But if there's none of that there, then our little exiles absorb the perfectionist message and they go, that's true. There is something wrong with me. I never get
Yeah.
it right. So
Yeah.
the exile would hold that sort of identity piece of that sort of sense of this is me. I'm flawed. I can't get it right. I can't make it happen. I don't have what it takes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that we would call is not a truth, but a burden belief that's come onto our system from things that we have gone through. And the
Yeah.
perfectionist just exacerbates it, right? It just keeps poking at it.
Yeah.
So in IFS, we would say, let's go help the part that got this early message that she wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And let's help that protector, that perfectionist protector know, I don't have to, she is okay.
Yeah.
We can help her with that burden. She is okay. I don't have to push her so much, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it's sort of systemic. One part connects to another.
Yeah.
That
No,
makes
I
sense?
no, it makes perfect sense. And I have a little of my history is that I had some early abuse by a neighbor when I was really young,
Right,
and and I was so young that I don't really have a lot of memories prior to that. So it's
right,
sort of like this been this, and I'm 56 years old, so I've had this 51 years of these like not good enough, not smart enough, just wrong. I'm doing it wrong. So that's been with me for a long time, and I started doing IFS maybe a couple of years ago, but it feels like it arises when I'm under stress, and
right.
seem to keep repeating these patterns where I'm like, you know what, I have two kids that are in college, and
Sure.
I'm like, I really want to contribute more. And there's some, I'm facing retirement in the next, whatever. And so this I feel this pressure to start producing more money. But as I get closer to goals, and I find that it's so funny because I spent 10 years in tech sales. I'm from Silicon Valley, and
Wow.
I excelled as an account executive. But when it comes to selling myself, it feels very different. And I just started noticing it's like,
Right.
wow, I really put a lot of obstacles between, now and when I allow myself to generate revenue. So it feels like competing
Yeah.
parts. Is that
I'll say
true?
that back to you in parts language, if
Okay.
that sounds okay. So, your managers have a lot of there's a lot of talent there, and they have a lot of experience selling and promoting.
Yeah.
They know how to do it.
Yeah.
And there's parts over there that want to promote you and say, we can move, we can do this thing, we can move forward, we can do this, earn this kind of income, etc. So we call that on the manager side. And if you're my client, say, let's sit at the head of a table. The you speaking to me, Arlene, is sitting at the head of a table. And on this side of the table, we're going to put all those managers that are talented, they know how to do it. And they say, let's do it. We're ready. We know exactly what to do. We can move forward. Coming back to the head of the table. There's another side of the table, though, and that part procrastinates, avoids, gets lost in things, says, not today, or does some other kind of distraction. And then we would say, and we make space for that. Oh, and they also say, based on what you said earlier, I think, Arlena, there are parts that say, well, do you really want to push the money thing? Like maybe it should be some about a different, there's something around money, not money. I don't know who's holding that, but there's some sort of polarity there.
Yeah.
Make it, give it away. Maybe there's we can give it away. So I'm not sure how that goes, but I heard something like that, that'd be on the
Hmm.
other side of the table from make it.
Hmm.
And then we might say across the table from you, those are the parts that say, do I have what it takes? Do I? Am I really enough now?
Hmm.
So the parts that have that feel vulnerable in the world, that get scared when they're exposed, get
Yeah.
scared about being exposed. I can feel that too.
Yeah.
As I wrote a book about addictive processes and IFS in 23, and just different ways when I take it out to a larger audience, I have parts that get wary, and how will I be received? And will they understand what I really mean? And do I know as much as everyone needs to know? It's like I need to know every single possible thing about addiction anyone ever said. My
Right.
parts can be like that. And then obviously that's impossible. So, do I deserve to be out there? My system can get wrapped up in that kind of negative spiral.
After 40 years of
Yeah.
experience and you have all the credentials behind your name,
Yes.
you've offered
Right.
the books. That's crazy.
Yep.
I
And then a
mean,
part can say, do I know everything? Isn't there more to know? So
yeah.
yes, it's crazy. Absolutely.
I was just gonna look up because I bought so many books on IFS. I was just looking to see if I had the one that what was the latest book that you authored?
This one is IFS and IFS treatment for addictions,
Ah,
trauma-informed, compassion-based interventions for substances, eating, gambling, and more, because we all know
ah,
that we all combine things.
I do have this one, the internal family systems therapy for addictions. Yeah.
All
Okay, I
right.
just wanted to make sure I had it.
Thanks, Carlina.
Yeah, this is
But yeah,
amazing.
you can just because those little exiles get like nervous. So I have to
Yeah,
go in, soothe them. Yes, we're okay, we're enough. And sit with my little exile will be like, have I done enough? That's one of my burdens. Have I done enough?
have I done enough? Yeah,
That's something I hold. And I return to that part. It's certainly better than it was. And obviously I am out here, so I can do what I need to do
yeah,
and love it. And at the same time, I can still navigate that vulnerability. I don't think we ever lose our vulnerability. We just
no,
don't want to totally be hijacked by it.
hijacked. Yeah,
And you're kind of describing when we get stuck, do it, don't do it. Then our vulnerability doesn't even have any chance. It has no breathing room because all we're
right.
talking about is do it, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so important is and I think that's where at the crux that's where people get stuck is with that polarization,
Yes.
we hear about the analysis paralysis and that's something that I so how do we break out of this? Would this be a good time to like try doing a demo?
I think it'd be great, Alina, and I'd love if
Okay.
you're up for it because,
Oh, I'm so transparent. It's ridiculous.
well, you know
Maybe too
what, to
much.
show people rather than to tell, though,
Yeah.
is really, I think it's great.
I see myself as a fellow traveler, right? Like I
Right.
don't I've been obsessively learning about this stuff for the last 30 years. But I definitely see myself as a practitioner and a fellow traveler rather than
Right.
a facilitator, rather than like an expert. There's something about being condescending that really turns me off. So
Right.
I think of myself as a student, basically.
Yeah, and it contributes to sharing more of yourself. And I think that's why I talked about my parts just a few minutes ago. Because
Yeah.
yes, I'm good at what I do and I have something to say. And
Yeah.
yes, there are times when I really navigate, fears or other kinds of vulnerability.
Yeah,
So
and thank you for sharing that too, because I was like, wow, after 40 years, like with all your credentials and your books, and man, you were right there at the very beginning teaching this stuff. And it's really amazing how IFS has really seemed to just it like has mushroom exploded everywhere. It seems like everywhere I turn, everyone's talking about it. So that's so cool that you were there right from the start.
it
And
was, and
it's
it was fun.
yeah, and it's also so relatable to hear you talk about, even though you have all that, there are still times
Right.
when that stuff kind of
Yeah,
creeps up for you too.
that's right. We're all on this journey,
Yeah.
and we're moving along. We're not, and
Keep
when
it
we get
moving.
stuck, we take a pause and do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump into that. I would
All
love to,
right.
yeah, free therapy for Arlena. This is amazing.
And why not?
Why not? Yeah, and I really feel like the trailhead in IFS terms, if that's the right terminology, is this just like this pressure and discomfort I feel when I think about why don't I allow myself to receive the money? Like I know I have the skills, but I get stuck and I feel like I don't want to say my fault, but I realize that it's something within me that is not allowing me to receive the money. Like I would just rather give my time away for free than charge people. So I end up,
Oh,
giving, over giving and burning out and things like that.
got it. So there's a couple ways to look. Let's set this up, and I'm gonna do this with you if you're comfortable, like I would with anyone I'm working with, any client I'm working with. And just I use a lot of if table is an okay imagery for you, I
Yeah.
use table imagery, but a way in which we can sort of see how all our parts working together. You know,
Yeah.
rather they it seems like they're working against each other.
Yeah.
And it feels that way too, which I get. But let's just see what we can, if we can set this thing up and get it a little
Okay.
organized, is what I always like to say. Let's get this organized.
I love me some organization. It brings me peace.
Right, right. Well, let's pause here. And if you're comfortable to take just a deep breath with me, kind of to shift. I know you got to run the show, so you're gonna have some alertness, but to shift some of your attention more toward that inner world, towards a sense of what that might be happening below the surface.
Mhm.
And if taking a breath, inhale and exhale helps you sort of also settle just a little bit, we might just to sort of bring us into this exact moment together. And I'm here with you.
Mhm.
So you and your parts don't have to figure this out by themselves.
Okay.
As soon as I say, let your parts know that you're the one invited someone like me in, right? And in this
Mhm.
moment, you're sitting at the head of the table. And as you do this, don't see yourself seated at the head of the table, just be at the head of the table. As if it's right here in front of you now, like your desk is or whatever.
Mhm.
And on the one side, and we'll do this together. So I don't want to misrepresent any of your parts. But on the one side, there's some parts that want to move things forward. If I understand that correctly, they want to move things forward
Yes.
financially and
Yes.
perhaps sort of visibility wise or something
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So in some kind of way, and you might see them or you might just know them, but invite the energy or the drive of those parts. Invite them to sort of take a seat. There's always more than one on one side of the
Yeah.
table. The ones that say, "You, we can do this more, and let's bring in a few bucks. We need to. Or time's a wasting."
Yeah.
So
Yes.
inviting all that energy over there, and there might be some more parts we'll add to that side of the table. But let the parts that know that are, I guess I'll use this word see if this feels okay to you and to them, to call them a little bit ambitious or striving.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you at the head of the table, let them know that they and their ambitious energy are welcome here.
Okay.
Yep, just as they
Okay.
are. And they might be a lot ambitious, and they're welcome here as they are.
Yeah, they seem excited.
All right, beautiful. And then we'll come back to the head of the table and we'll take another breath together. And then when you're ready, Arlena, on the other side of the table are the parts that have some, they somehow get in the way of this. And I'm not sure all the ways in which they do that, but what's your awareness of activities, thoughts, feelings that sort of are almost that oppose all that ambition? Do you have a sense of that, Arlena, as we just talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I get a sense of I have a gal with a clipboard who was like, we need to plan more, we need to gather more information. She feels very tightly wound and uptight. She's not ready. She's like, we need to prepare more.
Ah,
And I feel like there's others. One that I see often is like, I don't know if you've ever seen those little monkeys that have like the clanging hands and the
yeah.
drum and the hat that does it's
Mm-hmm.
like representative like a distractor. It's like, oh, we need to do this other thing first, or we need to do social media, we need to um, watch Netflix. There's like, the checking out part. So
Yeah,
there's
of
a few,
course.
yeah, there's a few of them. There's the one that wants to just like lay down and watch TV, one that is making all this noise, and then there's this other one who just needs to prepare all the time. We need to prepare more. We need to prepare more.
I love that. All right, I'm going to reflect that back to you. So take so taking a moment just to sort of shift your attention and begin to you sort of visualize or sense on the other side of the table. I love this one. She looks like a manager, but she isn't. She's a little obsessed with gathering more information. I'm reminded that you said, what did you say, the self-help.
She's my self-help junkie.
Yes. So she can't stop. She's
No,
compulsively
obsessed.
gathering new information.
Yeah.
The other parts say, let's move on, let's decide things, let's do things. But she keeps it twirling around with gathering
Yeah.
new information. So let's give her a seat. There's
Okay.
something going on with her. And we want to welcome her. So you welcome her as she is.
Mm.
Welcome her as the self-help junkie she is.
Hmm.
Welcome her to the table. And then next to her are the parts that like, all right, enough already. And they take you to, look at Instagram, watch television, check out a binge on Netflix. So just, that distractor. And let's welcome her to the table as well.
Okay. I can see them there.
Yeah. And then let's come back to the head. And just for the moment, across from you, the ones that you had mentioned a little bit ago, the ones who say, am I enough? Do I have what it
Mm.
takes? The ones who carry just some burdens, like shame or not enough.
Yeah.
And you may or may not have visual images of these little parts, but just inviting them and whatever they're holding to see if it's okay to put them at the foot of the table across from you, not too far, not too close.
Okay.
And just see, is it okay to bring them in right now? Is anybody hesitant about bringing them here? Just check. Might be some parts that aren't ready.
Yeah, I do feel it's odd. I do feel I don't normally feel like they just feel a little squirrely, like a little hesitant to come forward. And tell me again, say again, like what they typically are. These are like are these exiles or?
Yeah, they would be the exiles, meaning that we keep them below the surface,
Yeah.
right? Their stories are sort of in the background and their hurts.
Yeah, I think these are little ones that are afraid to be seen, afraid to be rejected.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like that's why they're sort of a little hesitant.
All right. So just let them know, just this is how we would start the IFS piece. From the
Okay.
inside, you let them know that you can feel their nervousness and hesitation about maybe about being welcome
Hmm.
or about it being safe here.
Safe, yeah.
Safe. Okay. So tell them, of course, a lot of places in your life haven't been safe.
Yeah.
So tell them that if they're not quite ready, they can be nearby, but invite them to notice you, Arlena. That in this moment, we're inviting them to a table with you, the you that's speaking to me.
Okay.
They're not with other people and they're not outside.
Okay. That now that feels like they want to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
They
if they get
just
nervous, you tell them just to tell you right away, and we're going to pause and listen to them. Okay.
okay.
Yeah. If they want, and even if they need us to stop, you tell them we'll pause.
Okay.
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 So we don't have to I don't have an agenda that we have to push past anything.
Okay.
Whatever we find is going to be valuable.
Yeah. I think she wants to be near. She just feels more comfortable with that clarity that she's just talking to me and you.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
so really taking her a breath and helping her really see that she's talking to you, she's talking to me, and the outside world is not, she doesn't have to interact with that.
Okay. She feels safe with that. She feels excited.
All right, beautiful. So bringing yourself back to the head of the table. If you're looking to the one side with the doers that are like,
Mhm.
start yesterday, I know what, get going, we can do this. And the ones over the side that said, I have to read another chapter. So see if you can let each side know, actually, I need you both. I
Mhm.
need parts that get me moving forward, and I need parts that help me um, prepare and be ready.
Yeah.
I need both. I need the ones that are ambitious, and I need the ones that actually want to watch TV. I need both in my
Yeah.
life. And so
Yeah.
in some kind of way, you let them know you both, maybe they're going to each make some adjustments
Mhm.
as we sit with them, but their intentions for you are very important, and we want to hear more about that. They are fueled by positive intentions, both sides. The intention to move you and get you somewhere, and the intention to, do it in a way that works, that feels okay for
Yeah,
everybody.
that feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I say, if this feels right to you, Arlena, to ask those parts rather than looking across the aisle that you're pushing everyone around, and well, you won't, you're immobilizing everyone, you're shutting it down. Inviting them for just this moment to shift their gaze toward you, Arlena, the you that's speaking to me. And what if they weren't in charge of fixing each other?
Mm.
What if they could each have more of you instead of more of the back and forth?
Yeah.
And just see how that lands for them.
Yeah, that feels more peaceful.
Yeah.
That
So
feels
take a
right.
breath into your own system right now and just notice what's happening when you are more peaceful. So your parts are settling down, and you did that by connecting with them. So just take a moment to enjoy that piece. We don't have to rush through a good
Yeah.
moment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when you're ready, is there one side or the other that you'd like to know a little bit more about?
I do feel sort of drawn to the the self-help junkie, the distractor
Mhm.
parts.
Sure. Okay. So before we go there, just let the ambitious ones know that we're going over there to not to endorse them, but to get to know them. Okay.
Okay.
So kind of reassure them of that because they get worried about all that. Like it's never going to
Okay.
stop, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So let them know they have a
Okay.
point. They have a point.
Yeah.
But we're gonna and they can observe. And if they get stressed out, they can let us know and we'll pause and listen to them.
Okay.
The ambitious crowd. If they have to speak, then we'll talk. We'll pause and listen to them.
Okay.
Mhm.
They feel quiet, like they're curious too a little bit.
Okay, beautiful. So when you're ready, the self-help junkie, just sort of take a moment and let me know how you know. Do you have a visual image of this part?
I do. She's wearing her glasses and she has her hair up in a tight bun and um she's got her notebook and a pen. She's ready. She's like taking notes.
So let her know you see her and you see how ready she is to to study,
Hmm.
to dive in some kind of way. And ask her when she does sort of encourage you to dive into something, to learn more, read another book. Ask her, how is she trying to help you? What's her intention for you when she takes you there?
She's trying to keep me safe from like embarrassing myself or trying to keep me safe from like humiliation and failure.
Mhm. Well, let her know that's important. And maybe ask her, has she ever seen anything kind of like that happen to you?
Yeah, that used to be a regular experience in my sales career.
Ah, okay, okay. So she's trying to protect you from being hurt again.
Yeah,
So she knows parts of you have been hurt a lot.
a lot. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So just in this moment, the parts of you that have been hurt a lot by judgment and contempt or ridicule, just let her know you see that she's really protective of those parts.
Yeah, she is.
Hmm. Hmm. And as she even refers to that time, do you almost have an image or sense of those parts that went through all that?
Yeah, I can I can go back to like forecast calls with managers who would like grill me over details of deals I was running, and they would do it publicly in front of other people, and it was just it was very painful, embarrassing.
Mm. Yeah, of course. So the parts of you remember that.
Yeah,
They remember how, I don't know if this word is too strong, but how humiliating and stressful that was. Am I hearing that right?
that's exactly the words. It was humiliating and super stressful.
Yeah. Hmm.
I would cry after some of these calls. It
Oh,
was so
Wow.
stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. So see if we can invite the ones who remember and had to withstand that sort of, it sounds like it happened way more than once.
Yeah.
So see if you can invite those who remember that feeling of being humiliated, ridiculed, minimized, patronized. See if we can put them somewhere at the table, maybe sitting with the other vulnerable ones. Would that be comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And yet it sounds like you didn't quit.
No.
All right. So there's also some parts of you, and we put them over on that manager side with the ambitious ones, that forge ahead no matter what.
Yeah.
So can we invite her to the table? Unless it feels like
Yeah.
she's kind of already there. The one who came back, who did her job and came back and went at it again.
Yeah. Yeah, she took a lot of abuse and she just kept showing up for it.
All right. So let's make space for the part that kept showing up and invite her to the table. And then some kind of way, Arlena, let her know you see that she kept showing up, even though other parts of you were really, really suffering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 And can she see you, this one who kept showing up?
Um, I think she can see me, but I don't really think she knows who I am.
Okay, let her know that, Arlena, that she felt kind of all alone back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but letting her know the you that isn't a part, that you that just has awareness, that you're hoping going forward that she can get to know you, that she doesn't have to be alone when she's out there in the world. And for just, she might not even be able to buy into that yet, but just to consider that. What if?
Yeah. She seems angry.
Ah, right. Is there more she'd like to say right now? Is that okay to hear from her?
Yeah. Um, I feel like she's angry with me for making her, um, for putting her in that position over and over again for
Got
this,
it.
like, for the sake of money.
Got it. So I'm going to tell you how I hear that in parts language, Arlena. You see if this is possible. I'm hearing that the one on the one side we are just identifying, she shows up no matter what. So that will be her role. She's
Mm-hmm.
tough and she doesn't let it show as best as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But is it possible that the anger about this is its own part? And that anger is angry at her for keeping going?
Yeah. Yeah, that does feel like a separate part.
Yeah, so let's give the anger on the other side of the table because the other side of the table is more about you in a certain kind of way. So let's give the part with the anger on the other side of the table. Let's welcome her here
Okay. Is
and
she on
invite.
the manager side or is she on the
She's on
other?
the side. She's hanging out with the Netflix watcher and the,
Okay.
yeah, she's over there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because there's something she's trying to do for you, something she's trying to balance out for you
Right.
that the managers are up to.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they do feel like they're on opposite sides. The
Yeah,
she shows up and suffers no matter what. And then the other side
yeah,
that's pissed about it.
yeah, right. So just again, noticing the two of them were talk about they were polarized back in the day and may sort of
Yeah.
a little bit psychologically polarized still.
Yeah.
So just inviting them to notice that what if they don't have to fix each other? Either one of them. You know, that inviting them to just notice you, the you that's here, the you that called this meeting,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and letting them know and see, we call this kind of an update. If this is comfortable, just letting those two in particular know that they're with you now and what you do now. You aren't there in that world anymore. You've made some changes.
Yeah.
If I gathered this correctly, some pretty big changes.
Yeah. We're not there anymore.
Right. So helping both the anger and that kind of almost that soldier that will come no matter what. Letting
Mhm.
both of those parts know you now. And it doesn't have to be everything, but just like that update.
Mm.
I'm the one that took us out of there,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
When they participate, but someone had that leadership of we're done here.
Yeah.
Hmm. We call that self-leadership of wait, hold on a second. I'm done here.
Yeah, we left like 4
Right.
years ago now.
So really letting them know that going forward, you want both the anger and the one who shows up no matter what, just to have more sense of you.
Okay.
You are today, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's that like to have them at the table and connected to a little bit?
Yeah, I think they both appreciate being acknowledged and recognized, and it feels more calming to have them look at me instead of at each other.
Right. So again, just taking one breath, if that's comfortable, one inhale, one exhale, and just sort of adding to fleshing out your table here. All parts of us, parts of our lives, parts that have had really important roles in our life.
Hmm.
And if we go back to the self-help junkie who studies all the time,
Hmm.
just checking in with her, does it make sense to her that these other two are a part of this? She knows something about them, is that right?
Yeah, I think she's doing her best to gather information so that they don't feel activated, I guess.
Hmm. Well, and I guess she knows about the one who had who had the pain.
Yeah, yeah, she's on the side of the angry one.
Hmm. Hmm. So really let that that researcher, that
Hmm.
self-help junkie, just really, and there's a part of me that doesn't want to call her that, even though I know you're saying it with affection, but
Hmm.
I'm always listening for just the slightest judgment we have of ourselves, you know?
Yeah,
So,
she likes researcher better.
okay,
Or
yeah.
student.
So
Yeah.
sometimes our managers are very comfortable naming everybody as something bad, right? Junkie, and we can say
Right.
that about ourselves with affection. We don't have to always be so careful. But at the same time, this part really has a real role,
Yeah.
that she's really trying hard to work with some very, very tough emotional places inside that have been in there a long time, if we hear that correctly. And ask her, is that
Yeah.
right? Are we hearing her right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. She doesn't like the self-help junkie. It's she's a researcher and she's legitimate.
Okay. So
Yeah.
pause here and let her know that and let her feel that respect with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do value her a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she feels good about that.
Yeah. And ask her if she says that she has to keep doing this stuff because there's other part you have been shamed and maligned and humiliated before, and
Yeah.
she wants to prevent that. And so let her know you get that and that it's true. Let her know she's right. That has
Yeah.
happened. She's not making it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was doing something before that I didn't actually like doing. And we're
Uh-huh.
and we're not doing that anymore.
Right. So just kind of again, just showing that to the whole table. Again, there was some self-leadership at some point. You moved on from that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So checking out that researcher. and asking her if she saw that uh, if your little ones were hurt again, even if they did get hurt out in the world, or they did get patronized or something, humiliated or something happened, ask her if she saw that actually you are able to help them. There's two things. One, that they have you, and two, it there might be some old stuff, some old shame type stuff that they can let go of so that at least whatever you're facing now will be the new world, the new way of going about it. If this researcher saw that you could help them with the stuff from the past, they don't have to carry like the past forever.
Mm, yeah.
We can't change what happened in the past for any of
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
But the burdens we got from going through those tough times, those burdens aren't us, they're on us. So if we can help
Right.
them let go of those burdens, those ones at the foot of the table, in such a way that they don't have to hold all that old stuff, will that help the researcher, just have a little bit of an easier go?
Yeah, I can definitely think of a few things that I always call them the littles, the younger versions,
Mm-hmm.
things that they felt bad about, like, where they made mistakes or they felt embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
um, things that they've been carrying around that they're willing to let go of.
All right. Well, so see, does it feel okay to go there right now, Arlena? So we could just name that. We can go there. We just see what feels right.
Yeah, I can think of a couple of things specifically that they'd
They're
like to
coming
let
right
go
up
of.
front to mind. All right.
Yeah,
So in some kind of way, the parts of you that hold some of those old burdens, those old experiences of having been put down in public, etc.
yeah,
Kind of let them know right now you're paying attention to them and you see those times are still a charge for them, of
mm,
course.
yeah.
And as you do that, see how do you feel toward them, those littles that held the humiliation or the abandonment, the betrayals, really.
Yeah.
How are you feeling towards the ones that had to hold the pain of all that?
I just I feel sad for them that they felt the need to carry these things all this time, and
Right.
that there was nobody there to tell them that they were okay despite, you know, things that happened.
Right. So let them know you get that about them, that they felt very alone and that your heart's open to them, that they went through that by themselves and had no support
Yeah.
for some very, very tough times. And see, as you're sending that, like sending that hard energy to them, see if they can tell, see if they can feel that you're with them in this moment.
Yeah, I feel very connected to them.
Hmm. And do they sense you? You can just ask them. Are you guys aware of me?
Yeah, they are.
All right, beautiful. So, how far away from you are they in this moment?
I feel like they're across the table,
Okay.
like
Yeah,
maybe.
and they can stay right there, but if you want them closer, they can move around a little bit too. Whatever you want to do. They're perfectly fine where they are, but sometimes I just check with people to see if they want to make any movement changes.
Yeah, they want to come a little closer. I feel like I get a sense of them at different ages, like they're each holding like something in front of them, and they're kind of in front of me. Their little,
Yeah,
their
they're little,
little things.
yeah, all right, beautiful. So they're showing you they went through hard times. Ask them if there's more they need to show you about having to be all by themselves when other people were after them.
See it like images like from high school or when I was younger.
Right. Yeah.
Times when I felt embarrassed or humiliated.
Yeah. Yeah. So let them know you see that and let them know, of course that felt bad.
Yeah.
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 And maybe ask them when they did go through all that by themselves, ask them how did that impact them on the inside? Do they still hold some stuff, toxic energy, beliefs from having to go through all that?
Yeah, the things that come up are like just not good enough. Um, I'll always fail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, I don't want to be seen and not don't feel safe.
Right.
Um, just these fears of doing it wrong and
Yes.
then being exposed
And getting hurt.
and getting hurt. Yeah.
Right. Not like being exposed and getting supported.
Right. It's the shame.
Yeah. 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 It's doing
It's
it wrong and getting shamed. Yes.
shamed. Yeah.
Rather,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I feel like that's the reoccurring, that's like the thread that ties them all together is the shame.
Mm. So just let them know you see that. You see what they're showing you, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, let them know that makes sense to you. Hmm. Maybe just send them some appreciation for being willing and having the courage, really being brave and showing up in this moment with you and with me, and just showing you what they've been holding this whole time. They're doing good.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And let them know if they'd like that shame, we can't change what happened to them, but the shame and the fear and that not enough kind of feeling, let them know those are burdens that have been put on them
Mm.
from all that, and that they don't have to keep carrying that. We can help them send those burdens away.
Yeah, they would like to get rid of that.
Do they feel ready to do that right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes when we do something like this, it feels okay to we're going to just invite the light in to help us. And for some people, there's a spiritual guide, or just like elements, water, earth, fire are helpful. So as I say any of that, does any of that resonate for you and for them as a sort of um, to participate in this, as a witness in a way?
Um, I get just more of a sense of like water, like
Yeah,
wanting to just like let it dissolve in water or just sink beneath the water.
yeah, got it. So just first let them know that we get that they know what they need. I love that,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
tell them you see that. We heard that. Yeah. They know what they want. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's
wash it
their
away.
core. That's right. So whenever they're ready, and they may already be kind of starting, they can search in and around their little beings for that toxic energy, those beliefs, that stuff they literally have been carrying around. And in whatever way feels right to them, giving that to the water.
Yeah. It feels like rain.
Mm-hmm.
It's all being washed away,
Uh-huh. Right.
carried away.
Mm-hmm.
I just get a sense that they're like playing in the rain.
Simply conspicuous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And this may really already be happening, but you can let them know, is there any quality they want to take back into their little beings that they lost when they had to carry all this shame around?
Mm. I was given a word this year, uninhibited,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
my little mantra has been to let her shine.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like um, I want to just let them all shine and be uninhibited the way she used to be.
All right. So you let them invite that into them, that freedom of being uninhibited and the
Yeah.
freedom to shine,
Okay.
right? Shining without fear and being uninhibited, being them our authentic selves, right?
Mhm.
Without fear, without shame. So just inviting that back into their little beings.
Yeah, I can see them. They seem to be more 3D than they
Ah,
were
right.
before.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
little brighter.
yeah. And see if there's anything else that comes up that you want to say to them or they want to say to you before we begin kind of winding down a little bit.
I think they feel excited.
Mm,
They feel a little bit lighter and
beautiful.
brighter. Yeah.
Yeah. So taking a breath into your own system, as I like to say it, into the body you share with them. And
Mm,
just letting that uninhibited, that shining, that freedom to move, just inviting that energy into to spread out in your own body home. That brightness. I loved that word.
mhm.
Yeah. And then just before we completely wind down, we can go back to the researcher and see, if she was able to take that in and how is she doing after being with us while this happened. Oh, we help these little ones.
Yeah, I feel like she put her clipboard down. She took her glasses off. She does
Uh-huh.
she does kind of shoulders back, kind of, sitting back in her chair. She looks way more relaxed than when we started.
Yeah, beautiful. And they may or may not feel any shifts, but if you want to check with the ambitious crew and just see if there's anything around this that they were able to take in.
They kind of feel the same, like they're ready to get busy. They
Right. For them, they're the same. They're just
pretty
ready.
much, yeah, they feel a little bit lighter, but they're I feel like they've been waiting.
All right. So let them know you get that they still feel a real strong and nice positive energy,
Mhm.
and yet they're a little lighter, and that they were
Mhm.
waiting. They felt like they were waiting for some other things. It kind of had a sense that some other stuff had to happen. If I hear that right?
Yeah, maybe they just needed everyone else to feel safe so that they could get back to work.
All right. Well, let them know that that makes sense to you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it doesn't feel as frantic though.
Ah, okay. So just energetically, not their goals or not their ambition, not their nature, but
Right.
there's just the ability to be a little less pressured, if I hear that correctly.
Yeah, a little more creative.
Right. You and IFS, we say there's a sea of creativity connected to self energy. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just taking one more pause and just appreciating all of these parts that were willing to show up with you and with me today. And I appreciate them, and you can share your appreciation with them. And then in whatever ways, right, just bringing your focus back to our space together.
Hmm. That was amazing. I was
Mm,
feeling moments of like heat moving through my body. I don't think it was hot flashes, but I felt
right,
like
right,
heat
right.
moving through my body. And
Yeah.
yeah, it felt like everything got brighter. Like it was kind of dim and dark. And then as everyone felt validated, everything kind of brightened a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah. Ooh, that was
Wow.
amazing.
You did
Oh,
beautifully. Yeah. And I think that when we do have that kind of, that there's energies moving through us, stuff from the past, stuff connecting the past and the present, updating, that there's true energy around that. So I really love you did great. You really stayed present with
thanks.
all of it and you were reporting it out to me beautifully. So we would call that you were tracking your parts. You were tracking
Okay.
different things. Oops, wait a minute. There's another one coming in.
I did it good.
See? You know, you did great.
I'm such a I love the gold star.
What is, oh, y'all, what's wrong with a gold star?
Yeah,
What's
no,
wrong with a gold star?
thank
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, but
yeah,
it's just great to be with you. And I just so get that.
thank you.
Doesn't it make sense
Yeah,
systemically that the memories of very, very painful times affect the parts now in a certain
yeah.
way?
You know, what's interesting is I always thought of the exiles as being super young, but when I was going through, 10 years of tech sales where I would have to sit on these forecast calls and I would be sitting with typically men that were VPs, authority figures, and they were scrutinizing my deals, my sales deals. It felt very much like my dad being critical,
Oh, yeah.
and you're literally on the hot seat where you have to justify all of your actions, and their job is to look for mistakes you're making. Like that's their job. And they get really good at it. So if you had
Hmm.
forgotten to do something or you hadn't done something, they would call it out, but it was in front of everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. And I
That's the
almost,
word. That is the word.
yeah,
And so it works on both levels, which is to say that it's absolutely legitimate that in your adult years you went
yeah,
through some tremendous suffering as they were humiliating and
yeah,
shaming and patronizing
yeah,
and just activating, probing, pushing in
yeah,
some kind of way, picking at you, I guess, those kinds of things in public.
yeah,
I mean, my God. So that there's
yeah,
absolutely ways in which we hold some of those burdens. And then you also said it. And some parts that went through that that remember going through that with your father back in the day, it's almost like a reinforcement for those little parts,
yeah.
right? It gets
Right.
reinforced. So they're the same and they're different.
Oh, that's so
But
interesting.
then they can get reinforced in the belief that there's something wrong with them because now it's happening now,
Yeah,
right?
that's been a reoccurring theme as I'm doing it wrong.
Right. Yeah, and they can
Yeah.
get they got a tough message early on around that, and then it keeps getting reinforced. So what you
Interesting.
do when you step in with what I will call the model will call self energy, which is
Hmm.
just no agenda other than to connect, listen, pay attention,
Hmm.
then you're creating a new relationship. You're not them, you're not your father back in the day.
Right.
You are creating a different experience for them. That's
Yeah.
called an experiential psychotherapy. You're creating within the psychotherapy hour
Right.
a new experience for your parts that
Hmm.
contradicts the old time where they're going to be shamed and abandoned. Nope, they're going to be welcomed and accepted and received. That
Ah.
makes sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shame and abandonment was like a reoccurring theme. So I heard that, whatever experiences that you have as a child, you kind of recreate that as an adult. And sort of the idea is like, so that you can help solve those problems. So it makes sense that I sort of recreated those experiences in my professional life. And I did get myself out of that.
Right.
I About 4 years ago, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I couldn't bear it anymore but
Right.
I was doing it for the money. And so I think maybe I wonder if that's why I have such an aversion to money because it feels so tied to,
That
um,
time, those parts,
yeah.
and the pain that it was painful to have money then.
Yeah, it was. And
Right.
it was a lot of money. And that's why I felt like parts kept showing up, like that
Yeah.
strong part that was able to just show up for that all the time. But there was a
Right.
part that was like mad that I kept subjecting myself to that kind of pain for money. So it
Right.
kind of makes sense that it was all sort of
But
entangled.
even if we listened, which we won't do now, but even going forward, if you were my client, I'd say, why don't we listen to your part that, let's just say she wanted money. And if
Yeah.
we really listen to her, my hunch is, yes, she wanted money, but there's probably a little more to her than that. There's also security or status or
Yeah.
whatever else goes with that.
Security
So
was big.
right, so that and then if we're on our own, I mean, that can be very important. So in IFS, we would just keep listening and we might say, listen, I don't want to go at it. I don't want to do the money thing that way again, not exactly that way. But
No,
at the
we're not
same
doing that
time, I
again.
can appreciate that part, see that part a little more differently. Just like seeing your researcher. She's not a money grabber, right?
Mhm.
But she was trying to maybe look for security or stability. Like, and what is she
Yeah.
afraid will happen if she doesn't have that much stability, right? So
Right.
that's how IFS would work. That's why we just assume every part. It may have negative consequences.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but it has a positive intention.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
don't keep shaming it or minimizing it. We want to find
Right.
a way to listen to it. And that's actually where they'll shift,
Okay, by listening.
right? Yes. It's
And
like,
so is
yeah,
that the process that starts to resolve that internal resistance
you
so
got
that
it.
now that I'm
You
in my
got it.
higher self, I can like take the actions I need to take to, I'm launching a new course called the Inner Compass program. It's a lot about,
Love it.
parts
Hmm.
work and self-esteem and all that. So,
Right.
yeah.
So that when we keep listening, so these parts, if there's a conflict inside between two intentions, gets it's money, which means stability, or ambition, which means something, success. But another part that says, don't, we don't go out there if those little ones are going to get hurt again. I'm gonna keep us reading books
Yeah.
rather than going out there. Whatever I have to do, they'll do the whatever it takes so that those little ones don't get hurt again.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So when they're listened to, then they get that they're on the same page. We both want to move forward, but only if it's not painful.
Only
Only
if
if
it's
I'm
not.
not going to get hurt again. You know,
Right.
only if those parts, um, you know, can be free. Doesn't have
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Be safe.
Be safe. Yes, there's the word.
Yeah, no, this has been amazing.
Well,
And
thanks,
I want to
Arlene.
be,
Been cool.
I so appreciate your time. I've taken way more than I had intended, but this was so helpful. And I think, people seeing how it works
Right.
will help them sort of understand why it's important to do this work. I think we need to see like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What are the benefits? And is it safe to do it? So,
That's right, Arlena, because a lot of times we'll be like, why should I look back? Like looking
mhm,
back it's not pretty back there. Why should I do that? And I think what you just did is show people. Yes, of course, some of it wasn't pretty, but what we do is we create new connections. We don't leave people abandoned in the old sort of place, but we connect to those parts and actually bring them into a new place, a new relationship.
yeah, I like the whole unburdening part.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Yeah.
They don't have to carry that old stuff around anymore from the past.
Yeah, I feel like that will prevent me from feeling triggered in the present moment when I start
That's
feeling
right. It really softens
stress.
all that. stuff comes at us, and someone else, people, the world being what it is, someone else could say something hurtful to you, of course,
Yeah.
but it doesn't go in so deep. And you kind of like,
Okay.
okay, that's their stuff, and you move
Yeah.
forward, right?
Yeah.
It's like me,
It
yes, I can still have my parts that are like, do I know enough? And then I have to be, yes, you do. Go ahead. We do that sort of inner dialogue. It's a different conversation.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
as you do this process for yourself, do you
yeah,
find yourself able to take those actions and
yes,
get the results?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I could see that.
Absolutely. It just, I don't want to say life is perfect. That's not what life is supposed to be about. But what happens is that I just have the opportunity to connect with myself a little differently.
Yeah, I love
But
that.
it's really to listen to what's not pretty or easy about ourselves with
Yeah.
more an open heart. And then we really see as I always say about any kind of firefighter, I'm doing a lot of sessions, and I know we're going to stop in a minute. Me too. But I've done a lot of sessions with people who go back to their old drinkers, go back to their old drug users, go back to the old hooking up drink parts
Yeah.
that they've been carrying around all this shame about for 20 years, 30 years. And what happens when they reconnect to those parts, not from judging, not from what's wrong with you, but from tell me more about how you were trying to help me. And
Oh,
what were you afraid would have happened if we didn't do any of that back then? What were you afraid was really going to happen to me?
wow. That's
And
really
it,
powerful.
right? It's just so again, this is where this mindset healing at any point in time, it's never too late to revisit those parts of ourselves and update them and give them a new relationship rather than the relationship with the judgment, but a relationship with you, with us in our present day.
Yeah, I noticed that when you had sort of directed me to have them look at me,
Yes.
like the whole energy changed. Because before, when they were sort of on the other sides of the table, sort of frustrated with each other, like that's where I felt the tension. But as you had them looking at me, knowing you were here too,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
then it was like then the energy completely changed. It felt like peaceful and calm.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly in IFS terms. That's exactly what it feels like when we have self energy or presence without agenda and open heartedness to our own experience, our own aspects, to our own sub personalities,
Yeah.
without saying, what is wrong with you? I am actually too ambitious and I'm too crazy with my research. It's cute to
Yeah.
say that stuff, right? We can laugh at ourselves. I'm not ever against being affectionate and laughing at ourselves. But at
Yeah.
the same time, when we're stuck, we got to do more than that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We got to
Listen, I
actually
mean, the judging hasn't been working.
No, and there's a dark
So
side to that judgment.
yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
dark side to calling apart a junkie, even if it's a research junkie, right? And
Yeah.
she felt so much better not being a junkie. And so we do that to ourselves. We don't know it, but when we listen from self, we just make these small adjustments. Sometimes larger adjustments, of course, but even
Yeah.
small adjustments can create uh, a sense of being integrated, right? Connected rather than
Yeah.
just at war.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I have found that in recovery work, it seems like it is the small adjustments that make the biggest difference over time. It's like the trajectory of the little changes make the biggest difference over time. And we don't feel it because, like, we're so accustomed, like those of us who participated in drugs and alcohol and other things, it's
Right.
like you do something and you get like a big dopamine hit. And sometimes when you do this work, it doesn't feel like it's not a
Dramatic.
big experience. Yeah.
Right. There's no drama involved. And we think, really? This is
Well,
it?
there's no high. There's no like
No.
euphoria,
Mhm.
but it's like, oh, but it's the little subtle changes that are actually way more powerful because they don't carry the price tag that drugs and alcohol
And
carry.
when they don't carry any kind of price tag, when there's no backlash against it,
Yeah.
we also can sustain it. And that's the other thing we talked about at
Uh,
the beginning of our hour, which is I can do stuff for a little while. I'm ambitious for a week or a month, and then I fall back, right?
yeah.
For example. But we can sustain it then when we're making those adjustments as we go along.
Right. That makes I feel like consistency is
Right?
a big, this is what I hear a lot is, self-discipline, procrastination, consistency. Like these are all themes that arise with people who are trying to grow and make progress and really make a breakthrough, like try to get to the next level. These are sort of the themes that we deal with. And so it makes perfect sense. Like, having this example, it makes perfect sense how that can be sustainable because it's not dramatic. It's
That's right. It doesn't
peaceful.
scare anybody. But at the
It's not
same
scary.
time, in the unburdening, we're really lessening our old loads that we didn't
Yeah.
even know were so heavy. So I really appreciate you doing this and inviting me
Yeah.
here and
Thank
just
you
taking the
so
chance.
much.
I love when someone is willing to do a piece of work and putting it out there in the world. A lot of people are gonna love this, Arlene. It's gonna be good.
Yay! I sure hope so. That's always a mission. Where
Yeah,
can people find you and find more of the work that you do besides I'm
sure.
gonna leave some
Um,
links to your books, but where else
Yeah,
can
put the
people
links to
find
the
you?
books in my website at csykes.lcsw.com. Um, and uh,
Awesome.
and so you can see events that I'm doing. I run workshops, I run retreats, I run
Nice, yeah.
classes. I teach IFS around the world for the IFS Institute, but I also teach and do workshops on my own related to different kinds of healings, different kinds of lessons. So all of that's on my website, and it goes through different. So every year I'm doing something a little different and something new.
That's exciting. Yeah, I will definitely check that out and leave links to all this in the show notes. But and don't
Beautiful.
hang up. But we'll say goodbye here. I just want to
All
say thank
right.
you so much for your willingness to participate in this. I think it'll be so helpful for the people that are listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arlena. Thanks for having me.